This is Who's Behind the News from Newsjunkie.net. I'm Matt Fiddler. On this episode, we're going to continue our talk with Gordon Whiting on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's attempt to control India's news media and what kind of insight that may give us in the United States about President Trump's trajectory in media manipulation, but also how Trump's manipulation of everyone he works with, including Modi, has undermined Modi's main message about India's importance on the world stage.
Modi and his party, the BJP, have finally revealed to the world and have brought us, revealed India's greatness, its long-standing and current and future greatness, and its ascendancy. I hope it all comes true, but that story got killed by Trump in a few moves. Just blew it away.
Gordon Whiting, good to see you.
Good to see you, Matt.
So, you recently took a trip to India. And before we get into some of the lessons that you've learned from that trip, could you talk a little bit about the relationship between the news media and the Modi government and kind of maybe a little bit of the background of that?
It's complex, but I would say the signal event, certainly in Modi's political career, were the 2002 riots in Gujarat, Hindu on Muslim violence, both ways, but the Muslims got the worst of it. It's serious violence that lasted for many days, and the criticism of Modi as chief minister of the state of Gujarat at the time was that he instructed the police to stand by. That was the accusation that tacitly he said, let the violence, the mob violence occur. That's a encapsulation of the criticism. And there was a BBC interview on camera where a reporter put the question to Chief Minister Modi whether or not he had any regrets or any mistakes in his handling of that violence. He said, yes, he felt he had made a mistake in the way he handled the media.
Not actually saying the police to stand by and to not intervene, but just
That's right.
how the coverage of the event happened. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so as to, the veracity of all of the claims, we'll leave that alone, but it does indicate where his focus in going forward became the control of the narrative and how the media is quote unquote handled, obviously has been an important thing to Prime Minister Modi. So there's lots of things that have happened, and we talked about them in the other podcasts, including this sort of crony control of the big media. Certainly, broadcast media is largely in the hands of friendlies now, and many of the more legacy print media are not. Some are friendly to Modi, others simply don't want to rile the BJP government. The threat of a tax inquiry, the threat of your license to do business, and the real estate that is owned, but can be taken away. If you're not fulfilling the mission of the news, then the government gets to decide if you're fulfilling the mission of the news. So there's a lot of reasons why they tread lightly around, investigations of the BJP and the leadership.
And it seems that the Modi administration seems to be really pushing this narrative that they want the press to kind of follow up with about Hindu supremacy. And a little bit that I know about it seems to be a little similar to this kind of Christian nationalism pushed by J.D. Vance and the Trump administration. So can you talk a little bit about that Indian concept of Hindu supremacy? What Hindutva?
Hindutva, yeah, Hindutva.
Yeah, can you
Well,
talk about that?
again, complex, and so I wouldn't do it justice just in a few minutes here, but there are certainly comparisons to other movements like Christian nationalism here in the United States, but it only goes so far. I think the motivations are the same, which is to unite a power bloc, and it can be very effective, and because it pulls on an emotional level, your religious beliefs, it can defy, some of the news cycles and other problems that politicians face, if you're galvanized on a sort of heroic quest to put to to retake your country or to establish the right kind of power as the leadership of the country, those motivations are very similar between Christian nationalism and Hindutva, but Hindutva perhaps has a more specificity in that it elevates Hindu origin, Vedic, the Vedas, the ancient predecessor of Hinduism, the writings, the canon, the seers and sages of ancient India, and their descendants, the Hindus of today. It elevates them at the expense of others in,
Especially Muslims, it seems to be.
yes, in disenfranchising and then also violence. Is I would say is more architecture to it in Hindutva. There's more intentionality, more plans on how to disenfranchise those and elevate others than there is in the general idea of Christian nationalism. So the motivations are the same, the execution is different.
In the last episode, we did talk about how there still is an independent press movement in India that it's not as big as the mainstream press that Modi seems to have a lot of control over, but they are doing a lot of independent reporting. And you recently went to India and you talked to some of these folks. What did you learn from talking to editors and journalists that are working for this more independent press about what's currently going on in the country?
Well, I don't know if there's anything new in terms of their sense of the oppression since I was there a year ago. More of the same. They're worried about it. They're worried about their freedom of expression and their ability to operate. But they're also worried just about on a business level how to survive. It's very difficult for the press, independent or otherwise, as it is around the world, but it certainly is difficult in India. And they're very brave and very courageous to be writing the stories that they're writing. Some have been charged.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that, about this reporter for The Wire, for example, that's been recently charged with sedition? What happened?
He's a reporter and co-founder and co-editor of The Wire. That's Siddharth Varadarajan. Last August, I believe, August 2025, was charged with sedition, I believe. Well, there's a series of laws that have numbers. I'm not versed enough to give you the specifics, but was charged by a regional police office in Assam. That's a northeastern portion of India, not the national government, but seen by everyone as something, the act was something of a proxy for this is the interpretation that it was coming from the national government, but it was executed by a regional police force, a charge of sedition against this principle of the Wire.in, an excellent independent journal. It's about 12 years old. And they charged and were they were charging on an article that he had published, seemingly innocuous, but they were claiming that it had some effect on national security. So a lot of people rallied to help The Wire and Mr. Vardarajan, and they were able to get one of the high courts to at least stay the process of the orders because, well, that's a good thing. Because if you don't get a stay and you end up being charged and imprisoned or jailed while waiting trial, that can take a long time. You hear this phrase, the process is the punishment. It's what happens if you fraud, you know, you may get your day in court. It might be years and years later. It often is. So he's out. He's not been jailed. He's still operating The Wire, but this is the type of thing that now hangs over him and The Wire and other journals. It's a message. So that's an episode that is now well documented. Anybody seeing this podcast could certainly look up The Wire, sedition, Siddharth Varadaraja, and they would find the stories. It was well reported.
So we talked a little bit about this afterwards, that the reason why he was able to fight this is because he has a certain amount of power. Is this having a chilling effect on members of the independent press that maybe don't have
Yeah.
the power to fight it?
Yeah, well, power and luck, and the sensible judge in court, seeing the thinness of the charges, was able to say, well, at least don't jail him. You need to step up and show more evidence before that. I'm going to let that go forward. I'm characterizing this, but it was something like that. So, yes, others may not have that kind of favorable circumstance. You have to worry about it. So you're worrying about keeping your business going. You're worrying about paying your staff, putting reporters out on important stories. But to bring home the bacon, to keep the doors open and the lights on, you do have to report what's important. And so it's a great difficulty. And I give it to them. They're really working hard to keep telling the stories of India in politics, business, political affairs, everything. Uh, Air pollution is a terrible, terrible problem, growing problem. It's not just dirty skies, health, serious concerns, and it's going to affect the country at large and its ability to continue on its economic path. But where's the reporting? So the independents are doing it, not many others are. Clean water, quality of life issues, which are life-threatening quality of life. It's not just having a good life, it's having a life is becoming very, very front and center in the Indian story right now.
So it seems like the Indian independent press is still reporting on these things. Are they having an effect on overall opinion? After all, there's a billion different outlets and there's a billion different distractions. You have the Trump
Mhm.
administration yelling and getting into wars and then just the basic entertainment, right? We all have our phones on us at all times that are giving us any kind of information and entertainment we want at any time. And who wants to focus on these gloom and doom kinds of things, especially when we're the powerless minority or powerless majority, right? Um,
Powerless majority.
are,
Yeah.
are these independent reporters having an effect on the overall Indian population, the mass?
Yeah, yes, they are. But it's indirect, or it's, the elites or those that are really interested, in the news, and the deeply reported news are reading these and are glad to have these outlets, but it's not the mass audience that once a newspaper could hope for. They might still, Indian Express or the Times of India might still be able to say they have 1 million readers or 800,000 readers or so forth. But, uh, when you're talking about the population of India, it isn't as influential, as directly influential. I would say it's at a remove. The elites, the attorneys, the doctors, the professionals, the investment class and so forth, which is a very small portion of it, do look at these things. Although it doesn't make them any better judgment, but at least they do. Many of them are consuming and reading and thinking about and discussing these stories that are more deeply reported. And so their opinions will then make it out into the world. But that isn't the same thing as having a large mass audience that's getting a direct hit off of a story that reveals corruption or something like that. So um, it's a problem everywhere. It's certainly a problem in India where the phone, this sort of face glued to the phone is just the standard thing you see now, and they're not really looking at news. They have a lot of options to fill up their day, and news streams by in a really quick cryon or something, and many don't care to go any too deep with this kind of reporting. So it's not the same.
Maybe Modi's not getting everything he wants out of the press, but it doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, if the press doesn't have the impact, if they're distracted with other things, then mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make a speech and project that and do special events and so forth and tell your story that way. You are influencing the narrative and their ability to have the media's ability to have its truth is diminished, and so you're able to stay in power.
Well, so what about information that's coming from the United States, from Donald Trump and his kind of megaphone that he has? Is that having an effect on the Indian press and the Modi administration, right? Like, if Modi be able to, if he is he be able to control the narrative through his stronghold on the press when you're getting different information?
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, it's a Pyrrhic victory that they were able to get, get their hands on the media to the level they did, or influence it to the level they did, the mainstream media, because along comes Donald Trump, and he's doing things that simply have to be reported on. He's changed, puts a 50% tariff on the country, 100% tariff, 75, he changes it, changes it, and then threatens, and then they negotiate it down, and then he threatens a higher tariff because they're buying Russian oil, and I don't want you to buy Russian oil. That's a bad thing. So that's not on the basis of trade between the two countries in this particular instance, India and the United States trade. It's not, it's that you're trading with somebody else that we want to influence. And so we're going to tariff the imports into the United States from India because of the other trade you're doing. That is really an unusual thing. Of course, now the US courts are having their say about what Trump can and cannot do with tariffs. But it did have to be reported in the mainstream press because it was worldwide news. You couldn't really stop it. And so Modi completely lost the ability to control that. That was a bad news. It diminished India's standing for sure. They didn't seem to have any power at all against Trump. Not only did Modi himself and the BJP national government have no power against Trump's moves, but their vaunted diaspora of Indians around the world that they've claimed are a second power base that influence the comings and goings, the doings of the world, the politics of the world, had no power against it. And so it diminished both of those stories.
Well,
Really
then now,
propaganda.
especially, right, the Trump administration says, okay, you can trade with Russia for what is it, 30 days. And so wait, it's like now the Trump administration is having, it's just showing that maybe
Yeah,
it's almost like they're under,
right.
we're like the New England. We're having this new external control over the country without even occupying it.
There's an uproar in India. What do you mean the United States is giving us permission for 30 days because of the Iran disruption and the war? You're giving us permission to buy Russian oil for 30 days. Daddy says we could, oh, look, we could, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trump. You let us buy whom we like to buy from for 30 days.
Right? It's just gonna, and they're gonna say okay, and they're gonna buy that Russian oil because they need it, and it's just gonna give him more. It's gonna give Trump more optics of power.
It's remarkable. Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, India really was made small overnight. Their story of Indian greatness, I mean, I love India. And India should be great. It really is great
Oh, what a
in,
rich history!
in numerous ways. Yeah, it is. There's no challenging its historical importance and its cultural importance. But Modi carefully fabricated a story, and it was being said that, now we have a leader. We didn't before, is the implication. Never had before, never since independence. Now we have a leader who has brought us to the front row, the table of important first tier world powers, and that has been sold and sold and sold and sold. And it's Modi and his party, the BJP, have finally revealed to the world and have brought us, revealed India's greatness, its long-standing and current and future greatness, and its ascendancy. I hope it all comes true, but that story got killed by Trump in a few moves. Just blew it away.
I want to take this back to the United States, where we both live and born and raised and citizens of. This seems like another parallel of just Trump
Should we sing the national anthem
using
together now,
someone.
Matt? For America the Beautiful?
Let's do that off camera.
For,
Um, but this just seems like another case of Trump using these people, and he's done this so many. I mean, right? Christy Nome, right? I mean, of course, but I don't know. Is there a parallel between that, right? Like we've seen so many people that Trump's worked with and like Elon Musk and like bring him up and and make him
Yeah,
really powerful, then humiliate him, but then he leaves and it's still okay.
yeah. There's no question who's got the upper hand. That Trump makes sure of that, and he's made sure of it by getting the presidency, and he's going to use it in that way. I mean, beyond that, I'm not the political scientist, so I just don't know how to unpack it. But yeah, I think so. You see, if you're Trump's friend, he's going to be the one for sure that gets the advantage of that. You may or may not. There's no telling. You of course have to remain loyal. And when it's another world, when it's another political entity, especially one as big and is as important as India, it just becomes extremely dramatic when you see what he does in the same way that he does with a person. I mean, he did it to who was his first attorney general, Jeff Sessions. Just threw him under the bus so fast. Forgot over what. But nothing but praise, praise, praise gets him in and then throws him away. He's had a couple of secretaries of defense that he did that to. Just threw him away. Mattis.
Then they'll bring him back if they kiss the ring enough. I think about Marco Rubio or something.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Again, I couldn't go down the list of all of the
Long,
things that
too long.
are examples, but I would say that yeah, you're always playing with dynamite or kryptonite if you're going to do something in a partnership with Donald Trump, um, a treaty or business or collaboration on the world stage at all. Beware. But what can you do? He's the president of the United States. What can you do if you're India?
Yeah, I suppose nothing. So from this, just to kind of end it, because about some of the things that you've learned and saw when you were in India. Are there any other big lessons that I should hear about that maybe I can relate to what's going on here in the United States?
Well, let's put it this way. Of the slice of the pie that is that is your day's consumption of information, news is less of it in India, much less than it was years ago. News as produced by news producers, newspapers and so on. And I would say that's true here. Um, in terms of being officially, formally produced by news gathering, news producing organizations, certainly a lot of streams of stuff that come at you. You might broadly categorized as news. It's true in both countries, but I think it's very much more acute in India. And the amount of hard news that reaches your average citizen, hard news, again, researched and produced, an editor assigned a reporter, they did the groundwork and they got a story out. At once upon a time, you could count on a pretty large audience actually in engaging that. Large as a percentage of the population, and that's shrinking. I don't know what the metrics would be, but what I saw anecdotally seemed that it was way off, and that influencers and just general other entertainment that comes over the phone that fills up your head is taking a bigger chunk. It's true here, but it's more true there, and maybe we're going in that same direction as we seem to be following India in terms of the public's relationship with the press. Um, there and the government's relation to the public's relationship to the press. Um, yeah, a lot of lessons to learn from India.
Well, Gordon Whiting, always appreciate talking to you and giving us your insight. Thanks for joining me on Who's Beyond the News.
Great to be with you, Matt. I like talking about this.